Imagine your pediatrician handing your kid a liter of liquid cocaine labeled brain tonic, while charging you 5 cents for the privilege of turning your toddler into a hummingbird. Welcome to 1886, where Dr. John Pemberton, a Confederate morphine addict who chewed coca leaves like Tic Tacs after getting his ass kicked at the Battle of Columbus, convinced America that snorting Peru's entire export economy through a soda straw was healthcare. The original Coca-Cola syrup wasn't some midnight craving. It was sold beside morphine tinctures and heroin-laced cough drops in drugstores, prescribed for teething infants. Let that sink in. Gilded age doctors looked at a screaming baby cutting molars and said, "Clearly what this situation needs is Colombian marching powder." These were the same medical geniuses who prescribed mercury for syphilis and lobotomies for PMS, yet we trusted them to calibrate kid-friendly cocaine doses. The syrup's label promised to cure hysteria, impotence, and nervous exhaustion, which in Victorian terms meant existing while female. But here's the galaxy brain pivot. When the public realized snorting pure blow-off windowsills was frowned upon, Pemberton simply rebranded the addiction. His formula swapped opium dens for soda fountains, letting Karens clutch pearls about street degenerates, while sipping a beverage containing enough stimulants to resurrect a dead racehorse. Modern parents panic if little Timmy sniffs a CBD gummy, but 19th century moms diluted Coca-Cola syrup in baby bottles. The medicine contained not just coca leaves but alcohol, because nothing settles a colicky newborn like a bourbon and amphetamine smoothie. Picture a world where PTA meetings were just coked-up kindergartners ricocheting off walls while their mothers clumsily embroidered Coca-Cola, soothing, onto samplers. And the kicker, we're still doing this shit. Swap cocaine for sucrose, and you've got every vitamin water or energy shot marketed to overworked millennials today. Pemberton didn't die a hero. He odded on his own product while morphing global thirst into a $79 billion rehab program. His formula turned pharmacies into speakeasies for soccer moms, proving humanity will mainline anything if you slap a medicinal label on it. My ex-wife Karen once gave our kid Red Bull for ADHD. At least she didn't claim it cured uterine tremors. So the man pushing cocaine syrup as a family medicine was John Pemberton, a Confederate cavalry officer turned walking pharmacy cabinet. After taking shrapnel to the chest at the Battle of Columbus, hometown surgeons treated his pain with enough morphine to tranquilize Poseidon's horse. Naturally, he developed a pharmaceutical hobby even Hunter S. Thompson would call excessive. His genius solution: replace morphine addiction with cocaine addiction, like solving a house fire by detonating a neutron bomb. Pemberton marketed Coca-Cola, not just as a nerve tonic, but as a patriotic duty, because post-Civil War America desperately needed more Southern gentlemen vibrating through walls like human bullets. His advertising pledged it would cure diseases peculiar to women, which explains why Atlanta soda fountains suddenly overflowed with jittery debutantes hissing at sunlight. And get this, he originally called it Pemberton's French Wine Coca, containing not just cocaine but actual wine, which means Coca-Cola debuted as a caffeinated, alcoholic, cocaine-spiked party smoothie. Imagine AA meetings where the sponsor hands you a mimosa garnished with Colombian marching powder. Here's the 1860s logic: morphine bad, cocaine good. Because nothing screams temperance like swapping one controlled substance for another 7 times stronger. Victorian doctors actually believed cocaine blocked morphine cravings, which is like treating alcoholism with jet fuel cocktails. My nephew tried this logic in college by replacing Adderall with Monster Energy. Now, his Twitch streams sound like a fax machine choking on pop rocks. Pemberton's pivot to soda only happened because Atlanta voted for prohibition in 1886. Overnight, his alcoholic Coke wine became illegal, so he simply removed the wine and quadrupled the cocaine. Thus, medicinal syrup was born, a non-alcoholic beverage dentists recommended for toothaches caused by grinding teeth into dust. Modern equivalent: Juul marketing vapes as smoking cessation devices, replacing lung cancer with nicotine-induced seizures. But at least Juul didn't claim their mango pods cured menstrual migraines. Looking at you, Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound. Key twist: Coca-Cola's cocaine content kept decreasing as Pemberton's personal addiction increased. By 1891, he was peddling a $700 syrup formula containing just enough coca to mildly annoy a squirrel while mainlining enough morphine nightly to drop a rhinoceros. His death certificate lists stomach cancer, which historians now suspect was coded Southern speak for ghost of a Colombian coffee farmer strangled him in his sleep. Meanwhile, pharmacists sold Coke syrup alongside insulin, because a bourbon-spiked stimulant seems perfect for diabetics. Next aisle over, they sold radium-laced creams for glowing feminine vitality. Truly the golden age of medicine. By 1894, a sack handler bought the syrup formula for pennies, while allegedly high on mercury vapor treatments, which explains why his marketing plan was literally, "Let's sell sugared battery acid as patriotism." His genius move: rebranding cocaine addiction as refreshment by swapping Peruvian marching powder with Brazilian despair beans. Same jitters, less illegal. They marketed this radioactive pancreas eroder as a tonic for civilized people at soda fountains. Civilized people apparently being factory workers needing to dodge child labor laws by staying awake 36 hours straight, similar to how 5-Hour Energy now sponsors paramedics working triple shifts because late-stage capitalism loves replacing blood with chemicals. My ex-wife Karen still thinks Sunrise Sparkle Emotion supplements replace therapy. She also thinks raccoons are government spies. The real pivot: Coca-Cola started gaslighting consumers into thinking caffeine wasn't an addictive drug. Their 1909 ad campaign featured Santa Claus mainlining a six-pack with the tagline, "The pause that purifies." This was 5 years before the FDA seized 40 barrels of Coke syrup for containing enough caffeine to resurrect a mummy. Modern parallel: Monster Energy claiming their boron-infused gutter water supports active lifestyles, while ER doctors coined the term gamer cardiomyopathy. Meanwhile, Candler claimed Coke cured morphine addiction, which is like treating arson with napalm enemas. Actual medical journals from 1903 recommended Coca-Cola for infants suffering from colic, because staggering a screaming newborn with caffeine shocks counts as progress. Next, they'll be putting Adderall in baby formula and calling it brain milk. The hypocrisy thickened faster than syrup sludge. Temperance activists chugged Coke between lectures about demon rum, while their hands shook like chihuahuas in blizzards. Church picnic: more like intravenous soda fountains. Kids hopped up on sugar, shrieking Bible verses at chipmunks. My nephew literally went viral last week for live streaming a sermon while chugging 3 Bang Energies. Got exercised and sponsored by G Fuel in the same hour. Critical twist: the shift to caffeine required more sugar to mask the bitterness of roasted waste chemicals. By 1910, a glass contained enough sucrose to choke a humpback whale. Dentists suddenly saw profits triple from both treating cavities and selling Coke stock. The American Dental Association's logo might as well be a molar with dollar signs. And the healthy angle: pure psychological warfare. They ran ads claiming doctors prescribed Coke for soothing nerves, while those same doctors were snorting crushed aspirin to survive their own caffeine crashes. Reminds me of how Instagram influencers now push organic blue matcha that's literally food coloring and regret. The ultimate irony: Coca-Cola's cocaine removal made addiction socially acceptable. Housewives sipped relaxing caffeine bombs while judging moonshine drinkers. Factory owners installed soda taps to keep workers docile yet productive. A liquid leash. Today's equivalent: tech companies offering unlimited lattes so programmers forget sunlight exists. Candler retired in 1916 claiming he civilized intoxication. He died diabetic and paranoid. His last words were allegedly the jingles, "Make them stop," whispered to a nurse injecting him with Coca-Cola branded insulin. By 1985, Coca-Cola executed their second narcotics-related pivot by replacing the original formula with the abomination called New Coke, a decision so catastrophically stupid it makes the opium wars look like a minor accounting error. This wasn't innovation. This was a meth lab exploding inside a focus group. The real motive: they weren't chasing taste, they were chasing the dragon of market share. See, Pepsi's Pepsi Challenge exposed the grim truth. Toddlers preferred sweeter poison. So Coca-Cola, in a move mimicking a Colombian cartel, watering down pure Bolivian flake with baby laxative, added enough high-fructose corn syrup to make each sip feel like someone dropped a diabetic beaver into a nuclear reactor. Historians call this the New Coke fiasco. I call it corporate amnesia. Did they forget their entire empire was built on swapping Vin Mariani's wine cocaine mix for soda cocaine back in 1886? Repeating history, more like remixing the same disaster into a limited-time offer. The deception was surgical. They staged the formula's retirement like a mafia hit closed casket, dramatic eulogies to inflame artificial demand. Then when panic peaked, they magnanimously resurrected the original as Coca-Cola Classic. A textbook psychopath move. It's like if your dealer replaced heroin with oregano for 6 months just to watch you claw at drywall before handing back the real stuff at triple the price while yelling, "You're welcome." The darkest joke: New Coke's secret weapon wasn't flavor, it was packaging. The sweeter liquid required taller cans resembling, wait for it, prescription pill bottles. Meanwhile, Pepsi was lobbing caffeine warheads at teens like they were recruiting soldiers for the ADHD uprising. I once watched a 13-year-old at a 90s skate park mainline Mountain Dew while attempting to grind a stair rail. He missed. His teeth didn't. The ambulance had a Pepsi logo. Coincidence? Capitalism doesn't do coincidences. Here's your WTF twist. The New Coke formula was exactly what their original morphine-addicted demographic would have craved. 19th century junkies loved saccharin syrups to mask bitter alkaloid aftertastes. By making New Coke cloyingly sweet, Coca-Cola accidentally recreated the perfect delivery system for the very narcotics they'd sworn off. Poetic? No. Pathetic? Always. Production stats reveal the psychosis. During the backlash, Coca-Cola hotlines received over 400,000 calls, mostly from furious Southern grandmothers threatening to shatter Pepsi machines with their orthopedic shoes. One Alabama man allegedly buried 6 cases of original Coke in his yard like a doomsday preacher stockpiling antivirals. My grad assistant found 12 intact cans at a Florida landfill last year. We ran lab tests. The caffeine content could have jump-started a dead musk ox. The ultimate betrayal. Swapping real sugar for high-fructose corn syrup years earlier, the real addictive pivot they hoped New Coke would distract from. HFCS metabolizes faster than a TikTok trend, spiking insulin like Wall Street brokers off Adderall. Diabetes rates skyrocketed 64% within a decade. But hey, at least they printed classic. On the can so you could cradle your slow death with nostalgic pride. Corporate America's only true skill. Rebottling extinction-level mistakes as we progress. New Coke was the second pivot but the fifth lie. First cocaine, then caffeine, then HFCS, then New Coke, then classics sold beside upgraded diabetes juice, where lab rats arguing over flavor profiles while the maze floods with carcinogens. This isn't consumer choice. This is Stockholm Syndrome with a lemon twist. Never forget, the same company that once claimed soda cured morphine addiction now sells vitamin water to gym rats who think electrolytes are afterlife coupons. Humanity's happiest trait, our willingness to swallow new lies from old liars. If aliens dig us up, our epitaph will read, "Here for the sugar, stayed for the self-delusion." Taps played on a Coke bottle. Modern energy. Drinks are just Coke's meth-head grandkids wearing lab coats. Red Bull didn't give you wings. It gave 23 people ventricular fibrillation last year. Researchers found Celsius drinks contain enough synephrine to make a Komodo dragon twitch like a TikTok dancer off books Adderall. The pattern's identical. Take a stimulant society hasn't criminalized yet. dress it in neon marketing claiming mental clarity, and watch productivity zombies mainline battery acid disguised as raspberry burst. Panera Bread's charged lemonade. That's cocaine wine with extra steps. 2 college students decided death was a fair trade for unlimited refills. Their lethal dose contained the caffeine equivalent of 18 espresso shots, which Panera slyly listed in microscopic print next to zesty lifestyle choice. This isn't innovation. It's Russian roulette with stevia packets. Watch the corpo speak. Bang Energy's CEO called his products biologically synergistic. A translation: we mix cheap Mexican caffeine with beta-alanine that makes your skin crawl so you think it's working. Their entire marketing strategy relied on gym bros too jacked on trenbolone to notice their kidney function circling the drain. Remember, these are the same geniuses who tried suing Pepsi over, checks notes, using the word bang in ads. That's like a heroin dealer trademarking needle scratch. Prime Energy. Logan Paul's contribution to Darwinism. Each can got 6 times a kid's daily caffeine limit wrapped in K-pop rainbow packaging. Pediatricians found 6th graders crushing these before math tests like 80s executives snorting desk cocaine. When the FDA finally growled, Prime's fix wasn't reformulation, just tinier warning labels. Modern problems, medieval solutions. Here's the kicker. Europe bans this swill. Bavaria outlawed monster imports after a dozen teens ended up seizing like broken washing machines. But America, we let Celsius hire cardiologists as brand ambassadors, while ER visits for caffeine toxicity tripled since 2019. Freedom means letting corporations weaponize your amygdala until your heart rage quits at 37. I had a grad student drink for Loco during finals week 2014. Kid wrote 80 pages on Byzantine tax policy before his hands bled, and he hallucinated Emperor Justinian slow dabbing in the library. His thesis won awards. His liver didn't. Coke's final joke. They OWN monster now. The same Atlanta ghouls who pushed morphine-laced soda fund, extreme athletes, base jumping off lax FDA oversight. It's not a product cycle, it's a Ouroboros of predatory capitalism. Everykin whispers, remember when we said liquid cocaine cured your headaches? Swear this neon pesticide's different. We'll keep buying. History's clearest lesson. Humans suckle any teat promising to numb the dread. Roman charioteers chewed cot leaves. Victorian factory kids sip gin tonics. You pound ghost energy while doom-scrolling layoff notices. The delivery system evolves. The desperation's fossilized. Your move. Crack open a Panera lemonade and notarize your will. Or grab a Coke Classic 89% corn syrup, 6% regret, 5% let's pretend we didn't nuke our pancreas for this. Either way, the outcome's identical. Enjoy your entropy juice.